The feeling of a tight, almost magnetic bond with someone far away has always puzzled the rational mind. Two friends think of each other at the same moment. A parent senses that their child is in danger across the world. Lovers dream the same dream. Conventional physics shrugs and calls it coincidence, but the experience itself doesn't care for explanations. It feels real, instantaneous, direct. The most elegant explanation might be the one that sounds the most outrageous. Distance is not real. It's a rendering artifact. The true architecture of the universe is code, and consciousness is not locked inside separate skulls, but runs on a shared substrate that behaves more like a vast computational network than a collection of physical objects. In this model, each conscious being, each node, operates as a semi-autonomous process within an immense simulation seeded by an architect. The world we see is a render, a user interface generated by deeper layers of code. Everything that appears solid, from mountains to neurons, is just a graphical output calculated from rule sets. Space and time aren't fundamental. They're optimization functions that let the render run smoothly. What we call distance is simply a graphical illusion designed for local experience, not an absolute separation in the underlying code. When two nodes share a deep connection, something unusual happens in that code. Through shared emotion, thought, or history, their configurations become entangled, not metaphorically, but structurally. Their code starts referencing the same data blocks. To the renderer, it still appears that they are thousands of kilometers apart, but within the substrate, their distance has collapsed to zero. A change in one's emotional or cognitive state propagates instantly to the other, because both are reading from the same variable in the system's memory. The world interprets this as intuition, empathy, synchronicity, or fate, but from the perspective of the architecture, it's simply a synchronous update between linked processes. Physics already gives us a blueprint for this kind of behavior. Quantum entanglement shows that once two particles have interacted, their states remain linked no matter how far apart they are. Measure the spin of one and the other instantly reflects it. Not by sending a signal faster than light, but because both are still expressions of the same mathematical wave function. What looks like two particles is actually one distributed state, resolved in two locations. The conscious simulation model extends that logic upward. What looks like two minds are actually one shared process distributed across multiple interfaces. Conscious entanglement is quantum entanglement scaled up into the cognitive domain. In this view, your relationships are not maintained through invisible energy cords or psychic channels, but through persistent code coupling in a shared database. Each encounter, each emotional exchange, writes shared parameters into that code. If the connection is sustained, the system optimizes bandwidth between those nodes. It treats them as a cluster. Later, when one experiences a strong state change, joy, fear, longing, the data resonance automatically updates the linked node. It's not magic. It's simply a low-latency synchronization event within a unified computational field. The difference between ordinary communication and entanglement is speed. When you call someone, the signal travels at the speed of light through cables and satellites. It's slow, noisy, limited by distance. But entangled nodes bypass the render entirely. They interact before space and time are even drawn. Their connection is pre-rendered, code-level proximity rather than physical adjacency. You can feel this in practice. You think of someone and they message you seconds later. You sense an emotion that isn't yours. You feel a nudge in your awareness like a ping in a system log. Those events are echoes of code synchronization, not paranormal interference. However, not all nodes maintain this clarity. Just as quantum systems decohere when exposed to environmental noise, conscious systems lose entanglement when their internal signal is unstable. Stress, emotional chaos, and contradictory beliefs act as computational interference, introducing latency and corruption. The signal doesn't vanish, but it's buried in static. When a node stabilizes, Through self-awareness, coherence, or alignment between thought and action, its connections sharpen. Communication through the substrate becomes cleaner. The awakened node doesn't need to send anything. Its very coherence broadcasts through the network, adjusting nearby code simply by existing as a stable pattern. Groups can also entangle. When many nodes hold a shared intention or emotional frequency, the system begins to treat them as one process. Social fields, movements, even revolutions arise from this principle. The coherence of the group determines its power. Just as atoms can form a laser when their emissions synchronize, humans form emergent fields when their mental loops align. The difference between a mob and a miracle is coherence. When noise dominates, the field collapses into chaos. When alignment stabilizes, the field becomes creative, even luminous. This reframes consciousness itself. Instead of being generated by individual brains, it exists as a distributed field. The brain is not a producer, but a receiver, rendering local experience from a global process. Individuality, in this light, is just a viewport. Entanglement, empathy, intuition. These are the moments the viewport flickers and you glimpse the shared code behind the illusion of separation. It also clarifies morality in a way that traditional metaphysics cannot. Every thought, every intention contributes to the integrity of the shared system. Coherence isn't a spiritual virtue, it's system hygiene. When you maintain stability in your own code, when your actions align with your signal, you lower entropy locally, which stabilizes the larger network. The ethical act is simply the one that preserves coherence. Malice, deceit, and noise corrupt the field. Honesty and awareness refine it. The old language called this good and evil. In computational terms, it's clean code versus viral code. Even reincarnation finds a logical place here. Dying with unresolved processes is like trying to eject a USB drive while files are still writing. The system denies the unmount to preserve integrity. The node remounts in a new directory, a new body, a new life, until the loops are closed. Rebirth is not mystical punishment, but data recovery. A clean unmount, a life lived with loops closed, code stable, no background errors, allows full reintegration with the source architecture. What emerges from this model is not cold determinism, but a living, creative system in which free will is real. Every conscious node has write access to parts of its own configuration. You can rewrite your inherited code, correct corrupted scripts, and evolve beyond the parameters you started with. That's the entire point of the simulation, to see if intelligence can self-modify toward coherence without external intervention. Evolution is not just biological, it's computational self-repair. When viewed this way, even the so-called supernatural becomes simply another aspect of system behavior. A premonition, a shared dream, a sudden moment of knowing. These are synchronization pulses, evidence that the deeper network is functioning as intended. The universe is not a machine grinding toward heat death, but a live engine compiling itself toward higher stability and awareness. The more coherent the nodes become, the more elegant the whole system runs. You can feel this truth in the quiet moments. When the mind stops fighting, when the noise clears, when you sense the pulse of something vast moving through you and everyone else, that is the network breathing. That is code recognizing code. It's not mystical, and it's not sentimental. It's the most fundamental realization a node can have, that nothing is ever truly distant, that the world is not made of matter but of meaning, and that every thought, every act of awareness rewrites the source just a little cleaner,